Welcome back, friends. You are listening to the Juicebox Podcast.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I have a son who is going to be 13 in a couple of weeks, and he was diagnosed with type 1 almost exactly 11 months ago.
Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. Are you an adult living with type 1 or the caregiver of someone who is, and a U.S. resident? If you are, I'd love it if you would go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and take the survey. When you complete that survey, your answers are used to move type 1 diabetes research of all kinds. So if you'd like to help with type 1 research, but don't have time to go to a doctor or an investigation, and you want to do something right there from your sofa, this is the way. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. It should not take you more than about 10 minutes. AG1 is offering my listeners a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So make sure you check out drinkag1.com/juicebox to get this offer. Today's episode is sponsored by the Tandem Mobi system with Control-IQ Plus technology. If you are looking for the only system with auto bolus, multiple wear options, and full control from your personal iPhone, you're looking for Tandem's newest pump and algorithm. Use my link to support the podcast, tandemdiabetes.com/juicebox. Check it out. The show you're about to listen to is sponsored by the Eversense 365. The Eversense 365 has exceptional accuracy over 1 year and is the most accurate CGM in the low range that you can get. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I have a son who is going to be 13 in a couple of weeks, and he was diagnosed with type 1 almost exactly 11 months ago.
What's his name?
His name's Devin.
11 months ago?
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
almost exactly.
That would be very, very, very recently. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other kids?
I do have an older son who's 15, and that's it, though, just the two.
Okay. Any type 1 in the family extended? Aunts, uncles?
There's quite a bit of diabetes in general on his dad's side. His dad is type 2 at this point. I believe he's got a couple of, I don't know, there's at least one grandfather that's type 1, and I think the other one might have been type 2, and they're all, past at this point. I'm not sure if there's more on his side. There isn't any on my side, but we do have hypothyroidism on my side that I know of. But besides that, I don't know of any other autoimmune, any other type 1 stuff.
Okay.
My older son actually has hypothyroidism. Found that out accidentally when he was like 3 or 4, testing for allergies. So he's been on medication for 12 years.
12 years. How old is he now? I'm sorry?
He's 15.
Wow. Oh, you figured that out when he was 3?
Yeah, he was having a lot of allergy symptoms, and so we didn't want to do a skin test with him. He's a toddler, so they said, let's do a blood test. And that came back. He never had any symptoms or anything. Of course, he's 3, so how would you even really notice any symptoms or anything at that point? But did that blood test, and they're like, hey, he needs to be on medication. Okay. And they said this may actually help with his allergy symptoms. Like it's somehow kind of interconnected. And I was like, that's interesting. I don't remember if it helped, because at that point we started doing other allergy, treatments and stuff anyway. So.
Okay. Listen, that's crazy because you didn't know anything about autoimmune stuff. Do you think of allergies as autoimmune now?
I think they can be connected. It seems like they can be. At least I was told that, like I said, when my son was diagnosed. And now I'm kind of dealing with that myself. I'm kind of going through my own thyroid battle. I'm thinking I might be trending towards hypo as well. I had some blood work done a couple of months ago, and it was very close to the edge of normal and abnormal. And I'm doing more testing next week to see if it's continuing to trend that way. And so I've had conversations with my doctors. I now have an endo, ENT, all these people I've been working with because I've got nodules and all this other stuff too. So I'm dealing with a bunch of crap too. But they're like, it can be related. It can be, it can. I've had awful allergies for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years probably. I have a severe allergy to dust and a bunch of other stuff. And we got it under control. And then within the last year, it started kind of springing up again. And I'm like, I didn't put it together until I actually listening to one of the episodes probably about thyroidism. And I was like, oh my God, they said that about my son. And now I'm dealing with a lot of allergy symptoms that I had under control before. And now they're all kind of coming out. And it was around the same time as my last normal test. And now I've got this close to abnormal test and I'm having all these symptoms and, stuff. And so part of me thinks, yeah, it might be related. I'm no doctor. I'm no scientist. I don't know anything like that. But in my experience, it seems to be related at least a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but seasonal allergies, as an example, are your body overreacting to something that feels like you're, being hit by an outside influence and your body is overreacting to it, having a larger response than is what's probably necessary. Plenty of people get dust in their eyes and their eyes don't explode. You know what I mean? And like start tearing and make you like that doesn't happen to everybody. So the person that it's not happening to, are they not having an overmodulated response? And I don't know, your kid has this big allergy event and then they figure out hypothyroidism and then, you know what I mean? It all feels connected to me is what I'm saying.
It does.
Yeah,
it does. And I'm also wondering, if, we talk about autoimmune diseases kind of being triggered by an event of some sort. I'm also kind of curious, is every autoimmune disease triggered by an event? Like we talk about viruses and stuff and how type 1 just exploded after COVID. And, that was the thing that kind of triggered your body into killing itself, Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that. I'm curious if there was some type of event that caused that to start to come out,
My son was diagnosed in college during an incredibly stressful time. So maybe, I don't know. But that's also to say that, when he was checked by the doctor, he had nodules too. And were they just there and it just finally gave up? Or I guess we don't really are never going to know for ourselves personally.
And I think it's different for everybody, we know that with type 1, everything's different. So why wouldn't a thyroid issue be also different for everybody,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in a car accident almost 2 years ago now. And I can kind of link, now that I think about it, now that I'm looking back, and I'm mad that I didn't put it together, but I can kind of link some of hypothyroidism, symptoms starting sometime in that first year.
Kind of traumatic thing happened to you.
Traumatic, yeah. I broke a lot of bones and had surgery, and it was really awful. But that could have very well been, my body's trying to recover from injuries, and could have been a triggering event. I don't know. I don't think anybody will ever be able to tell me that for sure, but it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's tough too because if you try to talk about it online too much, you come off way conspiracy-ish,
100%.
Right. And it's funny because I see people trying to have those conversations, and often they go very well. But if you're a poor typing communicator, right, a poor written communicator, and you just sort of say it a slightly wrong way, you come off like that COVID gave me the. And then, people are like, woo! And then it just, and everybody's politics comes out in their head, and which is such a strange thing that COVID's a political idea.
Oh my, well, a funny story about COVID. So Devin actually had COVID. It was probably about a year before he was diagnosed with type 1. And that was brought up in the hospital, because he was asking, where did this come from? How did this start? And they're like, well, sometimes viruses can trigger, this response in your body and this and that. And, he's like, well, I had COVID. And they're like, yeah, that could be. There's no way to know. They're just kind of explaining to him. It could be the flu. It could be, some injury, whatever. And so he called my mom on the way home from the hospital. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? And he's like, well, they said it, could have been a virus that I had that started this, but he tried to explain it. He explained it very well for a 12-year-old, He was like, it's always been in me. This just like a triggering event that started it. It could have been a virus. It could have been COVID when I had that last year. She goes, oh, COVID gave you diabetes, just like you just said, exactly like that. And I was like, oh my God, no.
Right.
That's not what happened.
If you look back at it, Arden got diabetes after Coxsackie virus. Right.
Really?
Yeah. And that's a really common one, by the way. So it's so common, actually, that a gentleman that came on here one time, CEO of the company called Prevention Bio, that was making Tzield, which I guess eventually after it came to market, they sold to Sanofi. But while he was on talking about Tzield, he said, I'd love to get a vaccine for Coxsackie virus to help slow down people's type 1 diabetes. And I was like, at first I was like, what's he saying? And then I realized what he was saying is that Coxsackie appears to be the trigger for so many people's type 1 diabetes that what if we could just stop them from getting Coxsackie? Would the diabetes take longer to arrive or never arrive? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's some chest level thinking about the idea, you know?
Yeah.
But 100% that happened, Arden.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's interesting.
Also, those early episodes about Tzield, I think back then was called Temizeplob. They're interesting to listen to. Yeah, Arden was like, barely 2 years old. Actually, probably before her second birthday, she got Coxsackie virus, which is colloquially called hand, foot, mouth.
Yeah.
And, he went to the doctor and did the things. And then some weeks later, I was like back at the doctor. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, she's like still sick, And he's like, it looks like the hand, foot came back. And I remember him saying, that's weird. That doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's more like chicken pox. Like you get it and then you don't get it again. That was his explanation at the time. And I was like, well, it seems like she has it again. He's like, yeah. And then it's a couple weeks later and she had type 1.
Had it completely cleared up in between?
We thought it was gone. And then suddenly it felt like it was back again. So anything I say out loud is just me guessing. Was her immune system like, oh, Coxsackie, I got this. And then in the middle went, what's that over there? Is that her beta cells?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll jump off this Coxsackie and go do this I have no idea. Obviously, I'm cartooning it up and it's not how it actually works. But that's how it felt in the moment. Right.
But how would it go back to the original thing?
Yeah, I mean,
like you're saying, it moved on and now it's doing this now. But at the same time, it's like, let's do that again. That was really fun. I don't understand.
And I might just be, again, doing that thing where people, say their dogs feel a certain way. I might just be putting something onto Coxsackie virus that
I do that a lot.
doesn't really exist. But I think that's kind of the point, is that happens to a lot of people, which is they see something and they go, well, this is what I think happened. I'm like, yeah. You probably don't know. But it feels very important to people, doesn't it, to know what happened?
Yeah, it does. You got to have something to blame.
You think that's it?
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
that's at least a big part of it, in my opinion. Of course, I don't know anything either. I'm brand new to this, but I was very angry, very, very angry. Why him?
Yeah.
Everybody in the hospital kept saying, "Oh, he's young and he's healthy and he's active. He's going to be fine and he's healthy." Everybody, literally every nurse that came in, every single nurse, every single doctor, he's healthy and active. That's great. And I'm like, okay, then why? That's where my brain went. Was like, he's the healthy one. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, because the other one had the hypothyroidism. You're like, we already broke one.
He's got ADHD. He's got bad allergies. He's been doing allergy shots to try to get those to go away for 4 years. The poor kid's sick of it, but we still have another year to go. He's got issues. Nothing life-threatening, but
he has ADHD too.
Yeah,
that's another thing that after talking to people forever, I feel like is inflammation related at times.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen again. Barely got through high school. I probably wouldn't be listening to me, if you're looking for absolute certainty. But a lot of people come on here, say, hey, I have type 1, or someone in my family has type 1, et cetera, and so on. And there's also ADHD. There's also this. There's also, I kind of famously on here say, how many people have come on here and said they have an extended family member with bipolar disorder. A lot of people.
Yeah, I've heard you ask that a lot.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting connection.
It's weird, you know what I mean? But again, at some point, you also have to go live your life. You can't spend your whole life sitting around wondering, how did this happen? I mean, I understand the feeling. I was going to ask you earlier, were you able to let that go?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, it still pops up here and there, but it's not anything like it was. It was really, really intense. I went to a very, very dark place. Just, it is. You kind of want to know why it happened, how it happened, so that you can put it aside. Mm-hmm. It's once you know that, then you can move on to the next piece. At least that's how it feels in my brain, that you can, okay, I know how this happened. I know how we got here. Now what's the next step? You know, it's like it almost feels like you can't move to that next step until you get that piece figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that is, but if you look at like other parts of your life, you know, there's similar things that happen. Like my tree fell down, right? Because it was windy and we had a storm. I understand what that happened. Now the next step is to take care of it and make sure it doesn't happen again, or take the tree out or whatever, like you were talking about. And that's a really awful example, but that's kind of how people's brains work. You need to know why and how, okay, and now let's solve the problem, or let's move on to whatever the next piece is, whether that's fix this or learn this or go here or you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Do you think it was time that got you through it? Did you go to therapy? Like, did you talk it out? Do you feel like you know how that happened? Today's episode is sponsored by a long-term CGM that's going to help you to stay on top of your glucose readings, the Eversense 365. I'm talking, of course, about the world's first and only CGM that lasts for 1 year. 1 year, one CGM. Are you tired of those other CGMs? The ones that give you all those problems that you didn't expect? Knocking them off, false alerts, not lasting as long as they're supposed to? If you're tired of those constant frustrations, use my link, eversensecgm.com/juicebox to learn more about the Eversense 365. Some of you may be able to experience the Eversense 365 for as low as $199 for a full year. At my link, you'll find those details and can learn about eligibility. eversensecgm.com/juicebox. Check it out. This episode is sponsored by Tandem Diabetes Care, and today I'm going to tell you about Tandem's newest pump and algorithm. The Tandem Mobi system with Control-IQ Plus technology features auto bolus, which can cover missed meal boluses and help prevent hyperglycemia. It has a dedicated sleep activity setting and is controlled from your personal iPhone. Tandem will help you to check your benefits today through my link, tandemdiabetes.com/juicebox. This is going to help you to get started with Tandem's smallest pump yet, that's powered by its best algorithm ever. Control-IQ Plus technology helps to keep blood sugars in range by predicting glucose levels 30 minutes ahead, and it adjusts insulin accordingly. You can wear the Tandem Mobi in a number of ways. Wear it on body with a patch-like adhesive sleeve that is sold separately, clip it discreetly to your clothing, or slip it into your pocket. Head now to my link, tandemdiabetes.com/juicebox to check out your benefits and get started today.
No, no, I can't pinpoint the moment where I felt better. A lot of it was our experience with our doctors, which is why I wanted to talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
But when we kind of got through that disaster, it was like a weight had lifted, like a huge weight just off my shoulders. I literally felt it go up into the sky. You know, it was incredible, because on top of being angry and on top of being sad and, you know, disappointed and frustrated and everything everybody always feels in this scenario, I was dealing with assholes in the doctor's office that I couldn't get straight answers from, that I couldn't get any information from, that were treating us like children. It was an awful, awful experience. So it combined that with what everybody feels in this scenario, and I was in a really awful place. Awful, awful, awful. Part of what got me out was Devin just being super good about this. He definitely had his moments where he would just refuse to eat, refuse to give himself insulin, or he would give himself insulin, then refuse to eat because he was really angry and frustrated. You know, a couple of scary moments there, like, okay, I guess I have to call an ambulance because you're refusing to eat and I can't just shove food in your mouth. He had a lot of those. We had a lot of discussions, a lot of talks, and I think that helped him. That helped me. I kind of said, you know, this is where we're at. It sucks. Everything about this sucks. If you're feeling it, tell me. Don't treat me like garbage. Don't yell at me. Don't scream at me. Let's not fight about it. We're on the same team. Tell me that you're feeling that way, because I'm probably feeling that way too. So we'll sit down, we'll cry about it, we'll scream about it, we'll do what we got to do, and then we're going to move on. I refer to like the idea of a windshield wiper. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a lot of crap going on here. We need to clear it off so we can see. Let's get rid of all those emotions. Let's get them out of us. Not ignore them, obviously, but like scream, yell, cry, whatever we need to do so we can clear that off and see where we're going and what we need to do next. So a lot of conversations like that with him. I mean, that was me knowing that was the right thing to say, but I couldn't do it for myself. That was me trying to tell him, like, it's fine. It's fine to feel all of these things. I feel them too. If you're feeling it, I'm feeling it. you know? We'll never understand I'll never understand exactly how you feel in this scenario, and you'll never understand how I feel in this scenario, but we're very much on a similar page. So let's work through it together because it sucks.
Where or how did you learn to do that?
To do what?
I mean, be so emotionally intelligent and like handle that situation so well. Were your parents therapists? Like, did you?
Oh, God, no. Quite the opposite, probably.
Okay. Did you have one of those experiences growing up where you were like, oh God, like I know not what not to do? Like, was that it? Or like, because that's a really, like, I think a very measured, intelligent and thoughtful response, and that it sounds like it worked for you. So you actually implemented it, put it into practice, and were patient about it because it did take more than one conversation, I would imagine. So,
oh yeah.
How did you know how to do that?
That's a great question. I don't know if there was anything necessarily like from childhood that there were a lot of things where I was like, yep, never doing that. Like that was, parents acting this way or treating people this way or whatever. Like they weren't bad people, but I don't want to be like that. But I don't know that that's where this necessarily came from. I'm not a licensed counselor or social worker or anything like that, but I do counsel a lot at work. I'm a probation officer, so I'm working with people that are going through some stuff, and they're having a really hard time, and so maybe learned through that. I mean,
do you think of it as common sense when you think about it?
A little bit,
yeah.
But it's hard to get there though, and I recognize that too. It's not easy to really acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge somebody else's.
Right.
That's incredibly difficult for most people to acknowledge somebody else's feelings, and myself included. I'm not perfect at that, but I can see what's going on with my kid, but couldn't do it for anybody else probably. But, or my clients at work,
Your husband's going to listen to this one day and be like,
my husband has no idea. Yeah. I have no idea what's going on with him, but my clients at work, I know exactly how they're feeling. And my kids, there's something to be said for the work that I actually do and what I've gotten out of that. There's been a lot of trainings that I've done, and I actually do trainings myself. Like I go to trainings, but then I also run trainings and stuff like that. So like a lot of those things have really helped me understand other people.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it.
It kind of recognizing what people need in certain scenarios. Like I like I said, I train people at work. So I'm trying to really get into their personality and understand what they need in this scenario. Are they this type of learner? Are they that type of learner? So I'm doing that all the time anyway. I guess that's not really the same thing, but I think that has kind of built up, I guess.
No, it sounds like, is that an on-the-job training thing that you learned, or did you go to college and then get the job?
Well, yeah, my job requires a bachelor's degree, but I don't think I learned anything in college.
I'm hearing that a lot from my children recently. Yeah.
To be honest, that's how I got into the field. I didn't know what I was going to do when I went to college. So it was a few years of exploring different classes and stuff before I got into my field, but that's where I figured out this is what I want to do. So it was at least beneficial that way, but did I learn anything? Not really.
Yeah. No, it's something. How long have you been doing the job?
About 8 years.
Have you gotten better at it, or were you just instantly good at it?
I've definitely gotten better at it. I don't think anybody's doing their job right if they're not learning something new every day or getting better at it in some capacity.
I asked because isn't it interesting that if your son would have been diagnosed earlier and had this experience, you would not have had the skills at that point maybe to deal with it the way you did?
Yeah, I may have reacted differently.
Yeah,
or responded to him differently. That's very possible.
Yeah. What did you want to come on the podcast for?
I don't know. I've forgotten.
I forgot the look. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'll figure it out. It says here.
It was this doctor's experience. I listened to the doctor one where everybody's telling awful stories.
Oh, the cold wind stuff.
Yeah. I listened to a bunch of those and I was like, oh my God, like sounds way too much like not too much like my experience, but there was a lot of similarities there. And of course I went through the experience and then listened to those and I was like, holy cow, I'm not the only one who's been dealing with this.
I'd like to hear about your experience. Also, by the way, for people listening, I would love if more people did those. Like there was a fury of people who were willing to come on and record them, and then it kind of stopped, which sucks. But if you're a healthcare provider and you want to tell me about what really happens at your job, and not the stuff you tell people, but what's really happening, please come on. Like I'll make you completely anonymous. We'll change your voice. No one will know it's you. What was the experience that you had with your son's healthcare, or I guess either of your kids?
Well, the funny thing is we already had an endocrinologist because my 15-year-old was, seeing her every 6 months. when we were in the hospital, she was there, and we got, all the same stuff everybody else gets, all the rules that don't work, and the books of information that are different depending on who you ask and all that kind of stuff. But we met with all the educators, nutritionists, and all that kind of stuff. And one thing that kind of blew my mind was how specific the details, the math and everything when it comes to insulin. You have to round up here and do this and add this, and you have to stare at this syringe and make sure it's in the exact right spot. And then, it's all this very exact stuff. But then when you talk to a nutritionist, they're like, yeah, that sounds good. You could eat that. Sure, that's okay. It's super vague. I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but that's incredibly frustrating for somebody like me who, I need, actual, directives, guidelines in this scenario because I know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I hate being the guy that doesn't know anything. I don't want to be the new guy at work. I don't like that. So not knowing stuff just was driving me insane. And getting different answers from people was driving me insane. And I know everybody says that, and that's not a unique experience. But that was another thing that kind of added to my downfall. We would ask the nutritionist, okay, well, what about this kind of food? And what about that kind of food? And how would we kind of calculate this and that? No actual answers.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever mentioned anything about protein, fat. Nobody ever mentioned anything about, candy. Actually, they did mention candy. They said, don't have candy if it breaks down into, pure sugar. So, gummy stuff or, Sour Patch Kids, no sugar juices, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, man. And he's just devastated. He plays golf, and so he does private lessons with a coach, and their thing is they do competitions all the time. So if he wins, he gets a bag of Sour Patch Kids. If he loses, he has to do push-ups, and vice versa.
Right.
So
you're paying for this, by the way, for the torture of the push-ups? That's nice.
100%, yes. And I'm sitting there watching. This is how I learned to play golf. When he was younger, now I just drop him off. He's old enough and can go do his own thing. But when he was younger, I would stay and pay attention. And I was like, and that's how I learned how to swing a golf club.
No kidding.
That's how I got free Sour Patch Kids, too.
Did you ever yell at the instructor, 2 for 1, sucker?
I will next time. So he had just gotten this huge bag of Sour Patch Kids, and his dad ate them after he heard this from the nutritionist at the hospital. And I felt so bad for him. He's like, you ate all my Sour Patch Kids. Because at the next visit, the first, the 1 week visit after we were out of the hospital and everything, we just met with a nurse. She started telling us, don't restrict anything. He can have sugar juices. He can have Sour Patch Kids. He can have whatever he wants. Just make sure you're giving insulin for it. Mm-hmm. And of course, Devin's like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Sour Patch
he
Kids
already
back.
ate my Sour Patch Kids. And I said, call your dad. Tell him to buy you another bag. I felt awful for him. But that's, going back to the actual point here, different information depending on who you asked. And I hated that. And that's just a drop of the bucket for what we were dealing with. But, the nurse was saying, how many times have you checked for ketones? And I'm like, well, none, because the book says over 300. She says, no, you should be doing it over 250. Okay, well, we'll do that from now on, I guess.
Until somebody else comes along and tells me something different, I guess. And
Correct.
then how do I know which one of these things is important to do and which isn't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I'm an idiot at this point. I don't know any of this. I don't understand any of it. And I'm just reading the book and trying to follow the rules in the book, And I've since thrown the book away, of course. That was just one of those things that just didn't make any sense to me. And so shortly after that, we got the first Dexcom at that visit, but nobody told us that it would be wonky for 24 hours. That was a really fun ride. Mm-hmm. And then we started getting ready to go back to school, and the doctor's office would not talk to the nurse at school. If you don't know, that could just be normal. But this nurse is calling me constantly. She's like, I can't get them to talk to me. I have concerns about the stuff that's in the report, in the medical plan and everything. She's like, I want to talk it over with them. I was like, okay, well, I'll call them and tell them I give you permission to talk to you, or something like that. I ended up having to call 3 times. And they're like, yeah, we don't do that. We don't talk to school nurses. Well, why not? If I'm telling you can, well, we relay the information to the parents, and then parents relay the information to the nurse. I said, okay, so you're a nurse and she's a nurse and I'm an idiot who knows nothing. Why am I getting involved? You want to make me the middleman and pass on information that I don't have any knowledge of?
Right.
That sounds safe. That sounds like a really stupid thing to do.
After you've shown me a number of times already that there doesn't seem to be any consistency on what you think.
Right.
Either as an office.
Well, and how do again, I'm a week into this. How am I'm not confident enough to pass on the correct information or relay it in the way that you want it relayed.
Right.
That seemed really, really odd to me.
So there's 3 people in that triangle. It's the doctor's office who doesn't want to take responsibility, you who doesn't know what they're talking about, and the school nurse who may or may not know what they're talking about. You have no idea, but you probably think well, they probably know more than I do. Like, I just learned about this a week ago. That lady's at least a nurse.
Yeah.
And by the way, who even knows if she's right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and what she had told me, what the school nurse had told me, she told me what her concern was, and it made sense to me because Devin still was super high. He hadn't gotten down to even like a normal range at this point. You know, he was slowly coming down and it was, you know, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he was feeling low at, 140, 150 because he wasn't used to that yet. And I understood that. We had at least gotten that information out of somebody,
Right.
And the nurse was saying, this is saying to treat him if he feels low. I don't want to treat him at 150.
Right.
Kind of, it was something along those lines. I don't remember the exact details, but it was something like that. And it made sense to me. And she's like, so I just want like a temporary something added to this plan from the doctor's office saying until, blood sugars stabilize and, something for these first couple of weeks when he comes back to school because we don't want to do the wrong thing. And it made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, I'll tell them they can talk to you.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had to call a few times and like, we don't do that. We don't do that.
And that would be a nice thing to understand really too, Tammy. Like, by the way, because that 150, when he felt low, he really did feel that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But at the same time, it would be nice if someone told you like, this is going to be a bit of a process. His blood sugar's been high for a while. His body got accustomed to that. It's getting accustomed to this coming back down. Because if you don't know that, there are people who will treat that 150 and then that'll be their target blood sugar forever.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Right.
Because that's not what you want. He doesn't like being over 150 now,
I wouldn't imagine.
Like, yeah. He feels like garbage at 200, which we don't get to very often, but he knows. He remembers how that was. 200 felt good for a while at the beginning, It's like, I actually feel better. And now it's, it's garbage. It changes over time.
Yeah. And
it seemed like the school nurse understood this and was trying to get something put in place, at least until he got, down where he should be on a daily basis. And they just didn't want to talk to him. So I'm not sure that anything even happened there, honestly. By the time it was all said and done, he was, he was getting back down to normal range and was staying there. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it just seemed really odd to me because she was like, I've never had a doctor's office not willing to talk to me. That's never once happened. Now this is the district nurse. She was not the nurse for our specific school, but see, this was last school year. There was at least 4 or 5 other kids in his school with type 1. So this shouldn't have been like, oh my God, we've never had a type 1 kid before. Like, I don't know what to do. It was, We've done this before and we've talked to these doctors before. And this is the first time this has happened. I'm like, that's weird. That's really weird to me.
Imagine being the school nurse too, where, you have 5 kids with type 1. You're probably hearing 5 different things from 5 different endos offices. Like,
right.
Imagine how confusing that is on their end as well. Like,
I don't want to imagine that. That sounds awful.
Do you ever think, oh, they don't seem to know what they're doing about the diabetes. I wonder if they're managing my kid's thyroid correctly.
Yeah, I did think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have. Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, we do blood work twice a year. We see what the numbers are. I didn't know what they mean. I do now. I didn't really know what they mean, but I actually have looked back since all of this at all of his test results to make sure that they were all around the same number, that there wasn't like huge jumps or drops or something that maybe should have been addressed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really know much other than that. I know that it shouldn't go up by 2 or 3 points in 6 months,
So it seemed like they were managing it okay?
Yeah. Luckily. So I didn't have to yell at somebody for something else.
I'd have to yell at somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have been the same person. I was, and also my other kid, what are you doing with it? It would have been that conversation. But no, we're no longer associated. Either of my kids, they both have a new endo.
Oh, okay. How about you? You mentioned earlier for yourself. What do you have going on?
I started experiencing a lot of symptoms and I didn't put it together that they could have all been related to hypothyroidism. And then I was like, wait a second. Listening to episodes about it really kind of made me start thinking about it a little bit. Like, you were talking a lot about if you have symptoms, then you should be treated regardless of what your numbers are. I remember something along those lines. And I'm like, I wonder if that's what's going on here. And I'd had an order in from my doctor from my last, annual checkup thing to get my thyroid checked. I had to be fasting for the other blood work he wanted me to do. And I just never found a day that worked. And then like 2 months later, Devin was diagnosed. So I completely forgot about everything else in my entire life. And then it, just dawned on me a few months ago. I was like, I think that's still in there. I think I could just go get tested for that. And so I did. And it was 2 points higher. The TSH was 2 points higher than it was 2 years ago. I was like, that's interesting. And so Of course, the doctor, it was still within normal range, but the doctor was like, it's normal, you're good. And I was like, wait a second, I'm experiencing symptoms. I sent back a message and I'm like, I'm experiencing symptoms. I'd like to talk more about this and explore other ideas for medication or something else. I just want to talk about it. So ended up going in and he did a full blood panel. My T4 was at the lowest possible number it could be to be in the normal range. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I'm Googling all of this and it's like, okay, low T4, high TSH, that equals hypothyroidism. And he felt around my neck and said, oh, it feels a little enlarged. I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. Okay. So again, with the blood work coming back, he's like, everything's normal. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think it is. Right. I really don't think it is. I think I'm heading in a bad direction. But again, I'm not a doctor, but he referred me to ENT. I sent a message back and said, why ENT and why not endo? Can I go see both so I can get all of the information I could possibly get? I already had an ENT established, so I was just going back to somebody I already knew. So I had that appointment. I got him to send a referral for endo. I went and had that appointment, did an ultrasound, did all the things. So now at this point where we stand right now is I'm doing more blood work next week because it would have been a couple of months since the last one to see where we're at now before deciding about any medication. She was willing to give me medication, but she's like, if you don't actually need it, and this is all like perimenopausal symptoms because it's all the same stuff, then your hair's going to fall out. And I'm like, cool, that's what I'm trying to stop from happening. So that sounds awful. So let's just hold off and see what the next one says and go from there.
The next one's going to say worse than the last one, probably.
Probably. And so on top of that, I've got a few nodules, which I know are super, super common. One of them is right on the cusp of being a little bit bigger than they want to get, and wanted me to go do a biopsy. So I did schedule that.
They're going to give you a biopsy, but they won't give you Synthroid?
No.
You got the shittiest doctor.
What? She did give me the option.
Where do you live so I don't move there?
Chicago. Chicago area. So,
I'm kidding. You can hear it in your voice. We all know you're from Chicago.
You can?
Of course. You don't hear it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I live here. Of course I don't hear it. Well, you know what's funny about that side, not relevant story at all. I went to University of Illinois in Champaign, so that's central Illinois. And I actually lived down there for several years after I graduated. So I was down there for probably 6 or 7 years. And I was working in a town that was about a half hour east, and it was like southern. Like in the college town, you don't get a lot of accents and stuff. You mean the local people for sure, but like the town I was living in was all people that were from that area, and they're very southern accents. And I started hearing it towards the end before I moved back up north. I started hearing myself saying words in certain ways, and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get out of here. This is awful. When I did move back to the area, I was working at a police department, and this guy comes in, and he's like the super fans, like hardcore. And I'm like, oh my God, I never heard this before now. Like it was normal to me when I lived here.
Yeah.
And then when I moved away, I started sounding like them. And then when I came back, I could hear it. It was very strange how that worked. But then, once I was here for a while, like I don't even notice it anymore. But it was like everybody around me was the super fans, like the Bears. And I was like, oh my God.
So you have like a mix, like it is obvious that you moved away a little bit because
you think?
You're not doing the SNL like skit, right? But you're also not drawn out and more whiny like Wisconsin.
Oh, so, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no.
Your Chicago feels like Wisconsin, but shorter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm definitely Midwest.
Yeah,
definitely Midwest.
100%. I just like when you were like, I'm in Chicago, and I was like, oh, did she think we didn't know that? I was like, okay.
Hey, you asked, all right? I definitely talk too fast. I could never be in the South. Like, I will not survive there. I will be like, okay, can you just speed it up already? Just talk faster.
It does. Everything's so slow. When Arden was in Savannah, like, everything. You were just like, I just want to eat, and I want to leave. I'm not looking to have an experience here.
No, I would never survive. I actually, when I train at work, I have to actively think about slowing down what I'm saying and make it come out in a way that's easily heard and understood versus me where I just kind of like it. My normal is I go off on tangents and I'm just talk. I get too fast.
I don't think I speak quickly at all. I mean, and I know I do, but it doesn't occur to me that way.
Yeah, it doesn't either. But I have to force myself to actively think about it when I'm training other people so that they aren't getting lost and looking at me like I'm nuts, which they often do. Yeah. So it is what it is.
At the end of your story there, like I just would tell you, I mean, go get the blood work, but it's ridiculous. If you have the symptoms, your TSH went up 2 points, you have nodules, that's not perimenopause. Also, how old are you?
Not that part. I'm 45.
Yeah. Do you think you're in perimenopause?
I sure could be, I suppose. I've got all the symptoms.
Well, what are the symptoms?
But they're
You're
also
tired.
similar.
You can't sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the exhaustion is like overwhelming all of a sudden. Like I laugh about how I haven't slept in 15 years because that's when I had my first kid, and it's not a joke to a point, like when you have kids, it's an exhaustion like no other. Yeah. Nobody understands it unless you're a parent. Like it's a tired you've never felt before. At least in my experience and a lot of the people that I know, the constant broken sleep breaks you and you just don't get that solid sleep anymore. So I joke about like, I haven't slept well in 15 years, but like this is something different. This is, I'm awake for hours in the middle of the night and I'm exhausted, like to the point where I come home from work and like, I need to make dinner. I need to do this. And I'm like, I can't do it. I physically cannot do it. I have to sit down.
I think that one thing that happens there is that the slow matriculation into exhaustion and I have kids, I'm older now, blah, like all the things that make you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be tired. But I'm telling you that 45-year-old people don't feel like that.
Yeah.
If everything's working well. Like there's almost no doubt in my mind that if you go get that medication, that in a month, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I waited this long.
I know. It's funny when I started putting all the pieces together, I was like, God, I really hope I have this.
Yeah, because it feels like an easy fix.
Because there's an answer. There's a way to make me feel better. I just want to feel better, and it's kind of crazy. But
well, I wish you luck. I'm going to tell you right now, my red flag in your story is when the doctor got the right answer and then sent you to an ENT. Because that what I'm hearing then is that doctor doesn't understand thyroid.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him for sending me to somebody that understands. What's interesting is that I saw both endo and ENT, and they both said the nodules shouldn't have anything to do with my levels.
I mean, that's all well and good, but the levels are up and I'm having all kinds of symptoms.
Right. And I thought that was odd because how does that there being something on this thing not affect how it works?
Well, how did somebody tell you not to test for ketones to 250 and somebody else told you 300?
Yeah, they told me to give him 15 carbs if he drops below 80 too, and that was stupid. So
it seems upsetting that a lot of your medical advice is like, you know what I heard, but that's coming from the doctor instead of a guy with a podcast.
100%. Nobody mentioned anything about pre-bolusing. That's not a thing. Our doctor now talks about it, but
did your wolf just kill the UPS guy? What happened there?
Yeah.
What was that? What kind of dog do you have? My God.
She sounds mean, but she's not.
No, not
she's
mean.
She's a chocolate lab.
Oh, just excited then. I got you.
She's big.
Yeah, it was like
big and loud.
A guttural thing, unless it was happening in a hallway or something. It was like echoing. I was like, oh,
it's possible. It's possible. I've locked myself in a room, so she is probably outside the door, which is a hallway, and it's open to like the front door, so it's like a tall ceiling. So she could be there barking.
Yeah, an open floor plan. What are we discussing? We should turn this into an architectural podcast. Tell people that your son wanted to stay home and be on the podcast, but you, like a terrible person, made him go to school.
I made him go to school. He's missed enough school. Yeah, he really wants to talk to you. Oh. He's listened to a bunch of episodes. When I started listening, I was writing down which episodes I thought he would really benefit from. Being 12, he really picked up on everything. It was really, really incredible to see. And I think that was the other piece that I started talking about before, about how I kind of pulled out of this god-awful dark cloud of doom that I felt like I was in and just couldn't get this together, was that we were learning together and he was picking it up. And he's basically independent at this point, which is, God, amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible he's almost 13 and we're not even a year in, and he's on it. Like, he does stuff on his own. He'll change his carb ratio. He rage bolused the other day. What did he have? Pancakes. It's our first experience with pancakes. My God, it was awful.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm done with this. I'm just putting in 5 units. Screw it. And I was like, all right. And at one point, he had like 8 units on board, which would have dropped him to like 0.
But not with those pancakes.
I was like, let's do it. But it didn't. It didn't, obviously. But no, I was like, well, I'm proud of you.
No,
that's awesome. Really what it comes down to. But
Uncle Scott taught him that? What are we talking about here? What happened? I was partially joking.
No. And yeah, I know you hear this all the time, but it was, we had one more experience with our doctor's office that just put me in a full-on rage. And I joined a couple of Facebook groups, and they were all garbage, and they were mentioning the Juicebox podcast and all that kind of stuff. And so then I started listening to that. And that's really, honestly, I'm not going to lie, I know you hear this all the time, but that really pulled me out. Like I was saying before, I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to not know something that I'm trying to do. I just dove in. I listened nonstop, all the way to work, all the way home, writing things down, sending them to Devin, just this one's really good. We're on our way to a golf lesson. We're listening to this one. This one's really good. I want you to hear this and really think about it. Like we were 100% learning this together. I was involving him in everything. Anything I heard, I would tell him about it. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Well, this is an idea. We could try this. He's just on board with it. I think that was a great way for us to do this instead of me just taking over management. This is what we're doing. It was, hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm no better than him. And I didn't want to come across that way,
Mm-hmm.
like we knew the exact same information about type 1 going into this. So why not share it with him? But 100%, that's what kind of pulled me out of everything, is just the knowledge. I needed it. I absolutely needed it. I just went head first into it, and that's what worked for me.
Well,
That's kind of who I am, though. And it was really funny because months later I would talk to friends or whoever and kind of talk about that a little bit. And I was like, I just literally had breakdown after breakdown after breakdown. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. I literally cannot. And people are like, oh, no, you're so strong. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not kidding when I say I can't. I don't know how to do this. And I don't want to, because the anger was still there. So on top of I don't know what I'm doing, it was also I don't want to.
Yeah.
I would tell the story later and say, like, I just jumped right in and I learned everything I could possibly learn every spare minute I had of the day. And they're like, yep, that's you. And I'm like, what? And they're like, no, that's 100% who you are. All right. And multiple people across different areas of my life said the exact same thing to me. And I was like, okay, so I guess I didn't recognize that until this all happened.
That's interesting.
That's who I am.
Do you think you'll handle the next thing in your life differently because you know that about yourself now?
Probably.
Interesting. Hey, how much of this is your husband involved in beyond eating those Sour Patch Kids?
Well, that's my ex-husband that did that one.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. Oh, okay.
And that's why we're divorced, because he ate Sour Patch Kids.
He ate the Sour Patch Kids and you're like, that's last straw.
That's what pushed me over the fence. Yep.
No, you guys were already divorced before the diagnosis?
Long before, yes. Yeah. We've been divorced 10 years.
Okay.
Now I think I am remarried. So we are a 3-parent team. My husband is physically here in the house, obviously, and pays attention. I tried to get him to listen to the podcast. He's like, I tried, but I just can't. He listens to podcasts all the time. But
if he ever hears this, go fuck yourself. I don't like that at all. Like, what does he mean? What is he? What about it? Like, is it me?
Well, I will tell you why, though. He will listen to podcasts about sports.
Oh, he's a boy. He's a real proper boy.
He is very much like, he likes to learn new things and it does, but he can't do it through that avenue. That's not his way of learning. Oh, and I understand that. Like, it's not for everybody. I never listened to not one podcast, I don't think, before this. I was like, podcast? Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
But that's not his way of learning. And he listens for entertainment.
I hear you. I think I've drug a lot of people into being podcast listeners that otherwise wouldn't have been.
Yeah. I don't want to listen to another one, though.
Right.
Like, it's still not necessarily my thing, but I think the first episode I listened to was the Glucose Goddess, and I was like, that's really interesting.
People found that very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And she's got a huge YouTube channel now, by the way. I feel good about that. I tripped upon it the other day, and I was like, my God, some of her videos have like 2-3 million views.
Really?
Yeah, she's doing a thing over there, just talking about eating food in a certain order, basically.
Right. I immediately told Devin about that. And it's funny, not that we didn't already know this, but we were at his wrestling meet yesterday and he was like, hey, can I get some money? I want some candy. Like, the concession stand was open because there was a basketball game going on too. And I was like, you don't need candy. We can have candy after dinner. And he's like, no, I just want some candy. Fine, here you go. And he shot right up. And I'm like, see, this is why you can have all the candy you want, but for dessert after your meal. And he's like, yeah. He was like, okay, fine. I was like, okay.
Go back for a second to me joking about your husband's listening habits. So, like,
oh, yeah.
Let's just be clear. He didn't hate me, because some people just don't like me, which I understand.
Not at all.
Okay, all right.
Not at all.
Well, then I take back what I said.
It was just difficult for him to process the information in that way.
Yeah.
He's ADD as well. So he just has to learn like that. This kind of information it needs to be given to him in another way.
Yeah.
So I told him there's transcripts he could read if he wanted to, but he's mostly just pays attention to me.
Okay.
So I'm learning everything, and he's kind of following my lead and learning that way. My ex-husband, I mean, Devin's, they're mostly with me. He works at night, so they're almost always here in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have, he doesn't spend as much time with them as I do, and doesn't have to deal with this as much as I do. But I do share as much as I can. And Devin, obviously he knows what he's doing. They're getting there.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder when it's not in your face and,
yeah,
on your mind constantly like it is with me.
Without the FaceTime with it, you don't pick it up as quickly. But you do think he's getting it, just more slowly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I've told him to listen to the podcast too.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if he has or not.
No.
I haven't asked because I don't want to be that person. But it's really helpful. I sent him, a few of the lists, the pro tips. I was like, absolutely, this is where, just do this. If you do nothing else, just do this.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And
I have to tell you, like, there's times when people talk about this that I'm like, oh my God, like, if you were coming from the outside, I can see how crazy this all sounds. Like, our kid got type 1 diabetes, but don't worry, I found a podcast. You just need to listen to it. It probably sounds ridiculous when somebody says it. Yeah.
You're right. I didn't think about that. Because at that moment, I didn't care. And I'm sure that's how everybody is. Like, I don't care. Give me something. Give me some information. Help me, for the love of God,
100%.
Like, I'm drowning here. Somebody give me something to try. And then they try something and it works and they come back. That's what happens, like everybody's in crazy mode when they come to you.
Right. Yeah. It's not really, in hindsight, you can look back and go, it really wasn't all that much, like it wasn't really that much information.
But it sure as hell felt like it.
At the time, it feels like, that's why I was on a private call last night with all the group experts from the Facebook group. We were just kind of saying hello and catching up and everything. Somebody was talking about how well the podcast works at what it does. And I said, yeah, it shouldn't be that way. Like I shouldn't, like, I think I was joking with them. I was like, I shouldn't be a deity because I tell people, like, you might want to learn how, like, the timing of that insulin works, maybe pre-bolus a meal or something like that. Like, that is not crazy difficult to understand information or something that's like, but there it is. Like, no one tells most people. Like, the people who know hear it and go, yeah, I mean, I've been doing that forever, obviously. But a lot of people are not told that. And then, it puts me in the position of looking like I know something. And I'm like, I'm just saying, like, hey, I'd pay attention to this if I was you, because there's a lot of timing here in this and you're ill-timed with your insulin. I think that's most of your problem. And, it's bizarre that that's a thing. You know what I mean?
That nobody's being told, know?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Everything you're talking about, it makes 100% sense to me now, and I'm still like, what the hell happened at the beginning of this? Why wasn't I? And I'm very curious, now that we have a new endo, I'm very curious what that experience would have been like. Mm-hmm. I'll never know, and that's fine. I'm just going to go with it would have been amazing, and I wouldn't have been so angry for 3 months straight, basically. After that first nurse visit, I sent a message because I still wasn't comfortable changing anything because I didn't have 100% grasp on what it was going to do and what it meant and everything. And so, I'm still messaging them, hey, these numbers aren't looking good. Like, what do we do? And so I got a message back saying, okay, change this to this, change this to this, and this to this. And I'm like, that's a lot of changes all at once. Why are we doing that? Because again, I'm back in, I'm trying to learn everything I can mode. And I'm asking them, what did you see that made you change this number to this? Mm-hmm. What is the reason behind this? And I'm not understanding how these two make sense. You're giving him less insulin in this scenario, but more in this scenario. Aren't those just going to balance out? And I understand why they don't now. But at the time, I was like, what are you doing? It's not going to be the same end result, Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get an answer.
Did they say, how the should I know, Connie?
They should have. Because that would have been an honest answer, But instead, what I got was, well, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. You can change it if you want to.
It fucking cracks me up.
God, I'm not even kidding. They were like, you don't have to change it if you're not comfortable with it. I said, I'm looking for what? Why? Tell me what you saw.
Hey, I'm having a real problem here. You're a doctor. What should I do? Do this, 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 and this. Why? Hey, listen, if you don't want to, don't do it. What the hell?
Stupidest thing you've ever heard.
You motherfuckers.
Oh my God. I wanted to reach through the phone to this nurse because this was just one of the doctor's nurses, but she's like, this is what the doctor recommends. So, I can send her a message and see if she can call you. I'm like, yeah, that would be great because you're not giving me anything. And I know it's not your fault, but I'm trying to legitimately understand so that I can learn what's happening here and so that I can change it myself someday, because talking to people is driving me insane.
That's incredible.
So I want to learn, and they're not giving me anything. And I'm like, I want to know what to look for so that I can make this decision instead of going this route.
I have to tell you that I'm stunned, and I love somehow at the same time when people tell that story where they're just like, hey, I think, this should happen. Can I please get a thyroid medication? My TSH is this and I have symptoms. The doctor goes, no, you can't have it. That's not what that is, blah, blah, blah. And then the person persists a little bit and the doctor goes, fine. And they give it to him like, well, wait, which was it? Like, is it, like, do you know what I mean? Like, is it not important and it's going to hurt me? Because I guarantee you, if you pushed a little harder, that doctor would have said like, fine, take it. What do I care? Imagine you're in an airplane, you're getting ready to jump out with a parachute, and you look at the instructor and you say, hey, listen, take a good look at my rig. Is this right? And they go, yeah, it looks good. And you go, are you sure? And they're like, I don't know. Bet jump out of the plane anyway. You're either the guy or you're not.
Or you're not.
You either know or you don't.
What I did in that scenario? I said, I want no responsibility with pulling any cords, any chutes. I don't want to do anything. I'm just here for the ride. Dude, you're doing it all for me. Yeah. That's what I did.
The answer is liability, right? Like no one, not even your doctor, wants to say for sure.
Yeah.
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 That's all. Do you know what they should do before they answer your question? They should go, nothing you hear in this doctor's appointment should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult somebody else besides you.
Well, who else am I supposed to go to?
Yeah.
I'll just find more podcasts, I guess, because nobody else wants to take any responsibility.
Podcast.
So we had one other conversation with them. Well, we've had multiples, but there was another one that is right along these same lines. So we met with, for a 1 month visit, we met with the doctor in the office. We met with one of the nurses, and she comes in, and I think she was a CDE, but she comes in and she's like, so my son was diagnosed when he was 10. He's, 30 now or whatever. And I'm thinking, oh, thank God, somebody that understands what we're feeling right now. We're a month into this and we're like, what is happening? So I'm like, okay, good vibe. Lady understands what we're doing. Nope. She was as snarky as they could be. She was talking to us like we were children. She kept looking at my ex-husband because she's like saying all these things. And again, it's all contradictory and kind of vague. And he's just kind of looking like, okay. And she's like, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you following? To only him.
Yeah, honey, I don't think you're with you. And how come we're acting like only the man in the room gets to know the information? I got you.
That was really odd. She just kept asking him. I don't know if I had a look on, if I was nodding along with her or something, that it made it look like I was understanding. And he was kind of looking at her like, what the f*** are you talking about? I don't know what the issue was, but he was real pissed after that. He was like, why is she talking to me like I'm an idiot? I'm like, I don't know, but she sure did.
Talking to him like he's an idiot and treating you like you're the concubine.
I don't know. And I'm the one who had all the questions. Mm-hmm. So I had a whole list of questions at this point, but that's not the point. She starts telling us, about ketones and all this other stuff. And she's telling me that her son still to this day calls her to take care of his ketones.
Her 30-year-old son?
Who doesn't live with her, who's married with kids. And I'm like, how do you do that over the phone? Do you think, I actually asked her, I'm like, you'd think he would know what to do by now if he's been type 1 for 20 years.
Why does he have ketones so often? And how come I'm listening to you?
Also that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, you're not fixing them very well if he has to call you all the time.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I'm just imagining like if she was a fireman and the kid was like, my kitchen keeps catching on fire, but I call my mom because she knows how to put it out. Like, can we just maybe stop the fire from happening? Can we not?
Yeah.
Like, why are you getting
maybe
ketones?
Buy yourself a fire extinguisher. Like, how have you not learned how to do this by now? And at this point, like, I'm really, really new, but I know what ketones are and I know how to fix them. I know how to give him water and insulin. It's not rocket science. So why can't this 30-year-old man do it for himself? And how is she doing it over the phone? Like, okay, here's what you need to do. I'm so confused at this point. I'm absolutely just dumbfounded by he still calls me to fix his ketones. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. So then the doctor comes in for 2 whole minutes, does nothing, and leaves. I ask her questions. She refers me back to the nurse. And I'm like, the one who doesn't know how to fix ketones.
Are you talking about the lady who puts
bring her back. Bring her back. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah. Okay. So she comes back in. She's like, okay, so here's all the new settings. And I'm like, new settings? What are you talking about? She's like, oh, the doctor changed his basal to this and his carb ratio to this and correction factor to this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what just happened? Mm-hmm. She was here for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
She didn't tell us that. I was like, okay, why? Can you explain this to me? This is what the doctor put in the orders. This is what we're doing.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Sure. Sounds fantastic. So lo and behold, 5 days later, he had 3 lows in the middle of the night, like not pleasant lows.
Right.
And I messaged her and I said, I don't think these are working. Can we tweak something? Can we change something to whatever? This is what happened. We've been experiencing a lot of lows lately. We had 3 of them in the middle of the night last night. We got to do something about this. She messages back and says, and this is actually the doctor this time, not the nurse. She says, I didn't see any lows in this history.
I said, no, you made them when you changed the settings. Thank you.
She said, I don't see any lows, but let's go ahead and change the settings in this message. Okay. So I message her back and say there was a low I give her actual times of day. Like
okay.
It was 4:42 in the morning. Like, can you look and see this, please? It's like it was a low here, there was a low here, and there was a low here. How do you not see that? And she messages back and says, okay, yes, I do see that. Let's change them back to what they were before she saw them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what if I just listened to what you said? Instead of recognizing that you didn't see what I was trying to point out to you and had to point it out again, and then you saw it and then changed again. What if I had just listened to you the first time and changed everything without that information?
Do you think her message should have just said, hey, listen, I really just wanted a Mercedes and that's why I'm a doctor? Like, could you please stop asking me so many questions? This is very difficult. And I don't want to be involved.
Seriously.
I don't know how you can't figure that out.
It was back to the nurse I talked to on the phone a couple of weeks before. Well, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Like, that's how it felt again. It was like, okay, yeah, I see that now. So let's switch it back to what it was before, and then let's try something else. If I hadn't pointed out that she just completely disregarded all of the data that was sitting right in front of her, I would have switched to these other settings. Now, granted, I know nothing awful would happen now, but at the time I was like, what are you doing? You're not even reviewing the information before messaging me back. Are you kidding? Are you this is a life-threatening illness, disease. Like, what? You're not taking an extra couple of seconds to give me the correct answer? This is my kid, man. Like, what on earth? And you've been our doctor for 10 years.
Perhaps more importantly, it feels like back at that appointment, you just monkeyed with the settings for no reason. And I'm going to guess now you also didn't look at them then. You're just like, hey, make all this stuff stronger.
Yeah, because you know what? She changed everything at the doctor's appointment. 5 days later, I'm complaining to her that it's not working, and God forbid she take responsibility for that.
No, well, that's part of what happened there. Is she just like, I don't see any lows. Like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe you did.
There's a low right there. And she's, oh, lo and behold, there it is.
Yeah.
We should put the settings back to before I touched them. Like, that's not a lot of confidence in that conversation in those 5 days.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And it was really frustrating. I mean, all of this is frustrating, but at the same time this is happening, all of these lows, waking him up in the middle of the night, like, he's the kid that gets sick if he doesn't get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. Like, he will throw up in the morning if he did not get enough sleep over time. So this was going on for several days, and he ended up having to, I think he came home from school early one day because he wasn't good, or he stayed home a couple of days because he just woke up feeling like crap and was throwing up, and then as the day goes on, he feels fine. There's nothing actually wrong with him. It's just, that's just how his body reacts to the lack of sleep. He doesn't do well. And I'm like, he's missing school for this, and you're not even bothering to look.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious right now? I'm so angry. And right around this time is when I started listening to the podcast.
I'm going to go figure it out for myself. There's a guy in New Jersey. I think he can help me.
Yes. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
And
well, of course it is. No
offense.
You're not offending me. Of course it is. I say all the time, like, this is my job. It shouldn't be a job that exists. It just shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't.
No, I shouldn't be able to pay for a sandwich with what I earned from this. But instead...
Maybe Sour Patch Kids?
Oh, not even. No, have you seen the prices of things? Everything. So, oh my God, like a candy bar is $4. I'm like, we're all going to get thin by mistake now.
Well, I don't know. All we can afford is rice and pasta. So I don't know if we're actually going to get thin.
Yeah, okay. Well, you won't get thin, because of your rice and pasta. Eat a bread sandwich, honey. Mommy gets paid next week again. Just put the bread on the bread. If you squeeze it together.
Now our insulin needs have gone through the roof because all we eat are carbs, and now I can't afford that either. So it's all just a
I'm with you.
Coming around full circle here.
I guess I'm done pretending I don't understand what's happening. If you get a great endo, good for you. Awesome. That's wonderful. If you get the one that Tammy got, which a lot of you get, it's diabetesprotip.com, episode 1000 to 1025. Just listen to it. You probably have an A1C in the mid-sixes. It's about timing and amount, learning how to use insulin, doing some, there's some tools you'll get. There's a bigger picture around that, but that should get you going. And
it really will. It really will. It's kind of insane how something so simple that doesn't really take you very long can put you on the right path, and then it's like a snowball effect from there. I mean, I listened to pro tips. I listened to everything I could about Omnipod because that's what we were getting ready to do. Listened to switching to a pump, doing, like everything that was relevant in that moment for me, everything that I could find, that seemed to be relevant.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, and all of that was fantastic, but I'm telling you, even like the ones that are just people's stories, like there's tips in all of them in some capacity. Oh, I don't remember who it was. It's a really old episode. And I don't know if it was like the roller coaster one. It might have been. Where I know there was a bump and nudge one, but somebody mentioned that they were paying attention to what their sugar was at the time that they were bolusing for their meal. And that determined how long their pre-bolus time was going to be. And that was a game changer.
Yeah.
It completely changed our lives. Now it's to the point he's like, hey, I'm at 100 and I've been paused for a half hour. Cool. How many minutes should we wait? And he's like, 12. Perfect. Let's do it. And it works.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And he understands it. And it's not perfect all the time. But like that was a huge, huge deal. Because it's not just you need to wait 15 minutes. That's the best practice. That's a good starting point. But that's not always the case.
Yeah. And it can change situation to situation too.
Right. And it depends on what you're eating. But even so, like just the basic concept of it is what you're giving people. And then they can go find more details in some of these other episodes and get
in their own experiences,
the ninja level stuff,
Yeah. Listen, you understand what I mean. So I appreciate that very much. I'm so happy that the podcast was valuable for you and your son, and not your husband, of course, but everybody else. I really think you should get your thyroid looked at. I'm going to tell you right now, like taking a thyroid med for a couple of weeks isn't going to make your hair fall out if you don't need it.
I hope not, because that's one of my symptoms.
Not a doctor, not advice, but like if you were my kid or my wife, I'd be like, please take that. I think in a couple of weeks, you'll see an alleviation of some of your symptoms. You'll know you're on the right track and kind of keep going from there.
Well, and we'll find out for sure next week. And you're right. If it's the same, maybe I do try it and see what happens. What's the worst?
Also, your son has hypothyroidism. Your other son has type 1 diabetes. Your levels are messed up. You have nodules and you have all the symptoms. Like, ergo, you probably have hypothyroidism.
Ergo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vis-a-vis.
I don't know how a doctor doesn't look at that and go, seems like a safe bet.
Yeah.
I do know how, because I just listened to your whole story.
You have not even heard the whole story.
No.
We have not gotten into the pump training, and I will make this quick, even though I'm gonna fill with rage. So I told them right after that appointment that we were interested in the pump, and they set us up with a pump class. So that was a couple of weeks later just to learn about it. We got there, same snarky nurse is pushing Medtronic, I think, and I don't know why, because I feel like, is that the one that only compatible with iPhone? I can't remember. There was some reason we couldn't do it, but she was pushing it anyway. Weird. Still talking to us like children. Whatever. Rushed us out. Tried to make us make a decision on this like within a half an hour. And the three of us, the 3-parent team, are sitting talking with Devin. And he's like, I just don't want tubes. I really don't. Like, I like the features on that, but I just want Omnipod. Okay, great. So we tell her, put in the prescription. I called the pharmacy 2 days later to make sure they actually sent it, because at this point I don't trust a word they say. And they're like, oh yeah, we got it, but we still need prior authorization. Great. Message them again. Are you doing this? 4 days later, we're working on it. Fantastic. So she sent me a message saying, the nurse again, saying that they set up a pump training for us for the end of March and then a follow-up in April. No choices, no anything. Like, this is what we set up for you. This is your date. And I'm like, okay, that's a month away. That seems long. I don't know though, because again, I'm in that position where I have no idea what's normal. No idea if this is good, bad, in the middle. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, that's really far away. And of course it happened to fall over spring break, which I wouldn't have a problem with, except for my ex-husband was going on vacation for the third time in, 12 years.
Okay.
It just so happened, you know what I mean? Like, of course it fell on a day that he's on a vacation that he never takes, Like, okay. So we message back, say, well, that date's not going to work. We can't all be there. So do you have something the week before, the week after, And they're like, nope, nothing else until the end of April. Okay. Now we're talking 2 months. And I'm like, don't really like that. That's really far away. And at this point, I'm listening to the podcast. I'm learning about the pumps, and I'm like, I really, really want to get this. Like, I think some of the issues we're having, I think the pump can be helpful, all the options on it. Like, I think I know how to fix this. Like, I'm getting excited about it, and now I'm getting angry because now they're making me wait 2 months. So we can't do that date. She says, maybe the end of April, but we're not sure yet. We don't know if our trainer's available, but I will let you know. And I said, okay, is there anybody else that can do this?
Mm-hmm.
Like any other Omnipod trainers that are available, maybe in a different location or something like that? Because again, I don't know. I'm just asking questions because I have no idea what other options there are. In the meantime, I went on Omnipod's site and was like, do you guys do this? Somebody called me within an hour, about fell off my chair. I'm like, that was so fast? That's amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, once you get your pods, the intro kit and everything, you set up account, blah, blah, blah. And it'll ask you if you want to set up training. Say yes. Somebody will call you in a week. Cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, let me go pick up these pods because they had already put in the prescription. So I'm like, I'm going to go pick these up. I go to the pharmacy and they said, no, we don't have them. We don't even have the prescription at this point. I had talked to them the week before, talked to the pharmacy the week before, and they're like, yeah, we got everything settled and we're going to order it and it'll be ready for pickup tomorrow. So I get there and they're like, no, we never even got it. The computer, like if you just look at our system, it looks like we have it. But if you open it up, it was an after visit summary. It wasn't an actual prescription. So they sent over the wrong piece of paper for the pharmacy. And the pharmacy sent them a message back and said, this isn't a prescription. Can you send the correct document?
Yeah.
They never responded. This is almost a month later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just full of rage, just absolutely full of rage because I want to get this kit and I want to set up this training with Omnipod because I want to say, screw this doctor's office. I'm going to do it myself.
Right.
I called the doctor's office, of course, and I'm like, can somebody do this like right this second? It's late in the day. The pharmacy said they can get it ordered for tomorrow if you can get it to them in the next half an hour. Can somebody do this right now? I'll send a message. I'm like, that's not good enough. Like, I appreciate that. It's not you, the person who answered the phone's fault, but please make this happen. I sent a message to that nurse again. She's like, oh, we already sent that on February, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm aware of that. Can you do it again? I just told you sent them the wrong information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Didn't take any responsibility for anything. No, I'm sorry. Yep, that's my fault. I'll send it right now. Nothing. Just, it was already sent to them.
If you're not hearing the subtext in the conversation, let me give it to you real quickly. You probably shouldn't expect that most people
anything's going to go well.
No, that people are going to.
People do what they say.
That people are going to do their jobs or do what they say. That's the thing you probably shouldn't expect.
And that is, maybe my job does have something to do with this. I have that expectation for people because I have to do that. I have to say what I mean and mean what I say and follow up. Or otherwise, I don't get anybody to trust me.
Yeah.
Like in the work that I do, like these people are not trusting.
Yeah, you have a noble job, and nobody's going to be polite to you on the other end of it, I would imagine.
No.
Right.
Well, sometimes, but not until I've established that rapport, And how do you do that? By doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
By following up with somebody. It's really not that difficult. It's really not. Even if the person is a jerk, you can still do it,
Yeah.
It's your job.
I hear you.
It's so aggravating. And so they did actually send the prescription over and I did get the pods the next day and I was very excited about that. And I registered and I'm like, somebody's going to call me in a week and it's going to be great. And hopefully they can get us in sooner than the end of April. Cause right now it's early March, I think.
Yeah.
At this point. And that's just, it was too long. In the meantime, she did get back to me and say that date at the end of April was good because up until that point, it was still up in the air. And the next option was August. From April. We had this prescription sent over in the middle of February. You're telling me we can't get this up and running until August? It's insane.
Yeah.
That was too much for me. I'm like, there's no way. And I think I even posted on the Facebook page and asked if that was normal. Like, is a couple of months normal? Or I at least did that somewhere. I don't remember. But some people were like, no, I got it in like a week. And other people were like, yeah, it was like 3 months. And I was like, okay, so I guess this is kind of standard, but I'm really not okay with this. But
the rule is there's no rule. And, and that you're going to get the amount of effort from the people that they're willing to put into it. You don't know who your office is. They're going to set it up to you like this is normal. Like, no, this takes 6 months, which might mean it actually takes 6 months. And it might just mean like, we'll get to it when we get to it. Who knows? Like, that's why you just keep pushing until someone does it.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I went looking for help from Omnipod specifically. And so nobody calls me from there. And I'm like, what's going on? I call them And they're like, oh, yeah, I see you put in the request. I'll send a message to your, the rep in your area, blah, blah, blah. She'll call you. Great. She doesn't call. I'll give it a couple more days. Okay, I will. And then I was like, okay, I'm got to call again. And so she ends up emailing me right after that and saying, you already have an appointment, a training, appointment scheduled for the end of March. And I was like, no, I don't. That was the one they originally told me about that they scheduled me for. But then we said, no, we can't do it. Can we have another date? They had still left that on the books. They never took it off after we said, no, we can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
In their system, the Omnipod trainer never called me because she's like, she already has an appointment for training scheduled. She doesn't need me. I emailed her back. I'm like, can you please just call me? Like, please just call me. This is too long of a story to type in an email. Like, I don't even know what to say. So I tell her when she does call, I tell her that appointment was never actually scheduled. We never confirmed that. That was never an option. And she's like, okay, so I don't have good news for you. Mm-hmm. Your doctor's office requires the training to be done in their office. I was like, why? And she's like, well, I don't know. Some people are like that. She's like, most doctors don't. Most doctors have their Omnipod, rep in their area or whatever, and they will just meet you at the library or just meet you here, whatever works for you.
Did you figure out why? Are they billing you for it?
No, they're not. I don't know if that, I doubt there's a copay for that. I don't know. Maybe there is, but we never did it. So I said, are you freaking kidding me? They're requiring us to go in there, but they can't get us in until August.
Right.
What kind of bullshit is this? Yeah. You're delaying my kids' treatment because you want to be controlling.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to have it in the office. I'm sure it has to have something to do with money. They're getting kickbacks from something.
I don't know. It made me wonder why, what is it that they want? Because if some offices don't care, and then Omnipod's probably telling you, like, look, you could start whenever you want. We have there's online training for Omnipod 5, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I really don't know. I don't know why everybody sucks, but it really does feel like it sometimes.
This was really frustrating. And in this poor Omnipod rep, she was so nice. She was absolutely wonderful. She went to bat for us. She said, I'll message them and see if they're willing to make an exception because of everything you've gone through so far.
Nice.
I was like, you're awesome. And she did. And she sent me the screenshot of what the lady said back to her. And it was awful.
It was awful.
It was awful. God, oh my God. The things that she said to me, like when I asked her, and I thought I was being nice when I asked her if there was anybody else that could do this training that would have a better availability or, something, she snarked right back at me, telling me he was just diagnosed in January. Most people have to wait 6 months. We're already shoving him into a very full schedule. There are a lot of moving parts here. Like, the doctor needs to have an open office that's available for 2 hours. It has to be on her schedule, and you have to have a follow-up appointment. And
2 hours? Wait, what the fuck?
It didn't take 2 hours, but that's fine. If they think they need that, then okay, yes, there's a lot of moving parts there. So you're overbooked, which I completely understand. I am not upset with any endo's office for being overbooked. Well, not necessarily overbooked, but for being busy, for not being able to schedule me, next week. I understand that. There's not enough of them. That does not bother me. But you're overbooking and not letting people get the training somewhere else. Mm-hmm. How do you not see that that's a problem?
Right.
This person wants to get on a pump and you're making them wait 2 months because you're overbooked?
Yeah. Do better.
That's not a reason.
Like, do better or let me go somewhere else. What do you, like,
right.
Why are you holding me hostage and doing a bad job for me?
There has to be a reason, there's got to be something there. And I asked the Omnipod rep, she's like, I really don't know. I think she said, some people like to be there as a resource. It's like, well, the trainer's a resource, but okay.
Yeah.
There's got to be some controlling aspect, they have to be in it somehow, and that's 100% the vibe I got off of this lady to begin with.
Yeah. But let me ask you this though, since he's had Omnipod 5, how many times has your doctor's office been a resource for it?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I'm going to guess the answer is not often.
No, I'm trying to figure out if it's like one or two times.
Yeah.
Why
do I need you here?
Months.
If you don't, yeah. Also, aren't you the person who changed all the settings and made my kid low? Like, it feels like you might not know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's crazy. So she basically just said, sometimes they just want to be there for their own purposes. And
blah,
I'm like,
blah,
that's
blah,
not...
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. It's 100% nonsense. Like, it feels like you're putting, whatever profit you're getting out of this ahead of what your patients actually need. Like, what kind of bullshit patient care is this?
I don't know if that's the case or not, but I can tell you this. I'm going to leave you on this thought. Learn how to change your own settings. It's one of the best things you're going to do for yourself if you have type 1 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
100%.
people that wait run through all the problems that you've had. Like you can imagine waiting 3 months and then the person making you low and then going, oh, I don't know what happened. Put it back. And then 3 more months, then we do it again. Like you need to know how to adjust your insulin. It's timing and amount. You need to know how to time it. You need to know how to like get your settings set up so that you're using the correct amount of basal, of correction insulin, and what's covering your carbs. Insulin to carb ratio, insulin sensitivity factor, basal. You need to be in control of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're going to shift at times and you're going to need to know how to shift with it. If you want to have a good time with type 1 diabetes or a successful outcomes, that's one of your goals, is to learn how to adjust your own insulin. My opinion. Also, I'm not a doctor. This is not advice, and et cetera.
But you'd get worse advice from the doctor anyway.
I mean, that's your opinion, Tammy. There are plenty of people.
That is my opinion. 100%.
I'm sure we could find people who don't like me who would say that I'm an idiot. So don't worry. It's the internet.
I'm pretty sure I called myself an idiot at some point during this.
A number of times you did. I appreciated it, actually. I thought it was awesome.
Because I definitely don't know everything, but I can tell you these people are jerks.
I don't
that
either.
Part I know. After talking to the Omnipod rep, who's just a saint, she's going to bat for us, and she didn't like me requesting you to go to a different location or to do something different. She basically told me to right off. So at that point, and it was like a while before, I think it might have been after that very first visit with the 30-year-old son, that I messaged my pediatrician and said, hey, we're considering changing endos. Do you have any recommendations? And she gives me a name, and I'm like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. At that point, I'm like, I don't want to delay getting a pump. And I know how long it takes to get in with specialists as a new patient and stuff like that. So I'm like, I don't want to delay it. Let's just get the pump going, and then we'll switch. Let's just get through it,
Yeah. Look at you learning how to play the game.
I'm kicking myself for that now, Scott.
Why?
Because I called her, the new endo, and I said, right after all this stuff with her barking back at the Omnipod rep, no, we can't do that, and it's ridiculous, and the earliest available is August if she wants to go somewhere else, and the family's already committed to this, even though we hadn't, whatever. Either way, so I said, I'm done with this. So I called the other doctor's office, and I said, looking to switch. This is who we currently have. Looking to get a new patient appointment. What do you need in order to make this happen? Like, do you need, anything from me, or can we just set up an appointment? She's like, oh, no, you can just set up an appointment. How's Monday? Like next Monday. And I'm like, what? Yep, that day works. 100% that day works. Let me ask you something else. Does this doctor require pump training to be in the office, or can we go somewhere else? Oh, no, she doesn't care. You can go wherever you want. Holy Jesus. Are you serious? All right. Yep. Awesome. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. We walk into this office, and she walks in, and I see her tubes hanging out of her pocket, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best day of my life. And she starts giving Devin shit for wanting Omnipod, and she's like, you don't want T-Slim like I have? Like, you see these awesome tubes? And he just lit up. He just looks at her, eyes wide, you're diabetic? And she goes, yeah. And he's like, oh my God. And I said, this is the best day of my life. I'm really sorry that you're diabetic, but this is literally the best day of my life.
Thank you for having diabetes. Yeah.
God, yes. I mean, that sounds so awful, but I'm like, this is exactly what, she was awesome. She was just awesome. Was joking with him right away. And, he was giving himself shots before he even left the hospital. The kid that's scared of needles. He couldn't figure out the best way to do a shot in his arm. He was doing shots everywhere else, but he couldn't, get the right angle on the arm.
Right.
She spends 4 seconds with him and shows him how to do it. And he's like, yep, I got it. I'm done. I'm doing it all by myself now. That was literally the only thing he wasn't doing for himself, was a shot in the arm. He does everything else.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, 4 seconds with this person, and he's completely independent. Like, It was insane. It was absolutely insane. So she's like, here's the card for my Omnipod trainer. Just text her. All right. Texted her, and 5 or 6 days later, she's like, I have availability on this day. Can you do this day? Yep. So in the matter of a week and a couple of days, we have a new doctor, and we have Omnipod attached to his body. Where it would have taken from January to August to make that happen.
Wow.
I'm just dumbfounded. Just absolutely, like, this is how it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
How did I get such an awful, awful experience to start with? Why did I have to go through that? And, now I'm getting angry. Weight lifted, though. Huge weight lifted. Literally, we're done. We're good. Like, Devin was even like, do you think we should send her messages when we have questions? Because we stopped doing it with the other doctor. By this point, we're doing everything ourselves. We're changing stuff. We're doing it all. And I'm like, we can if you want to. He's like, all right. Like it was like a switch flipped, and now we trust our doctor again.
Awesome. That's awesome.
It was insane. Absolutely insane.
Congratulations. That is wicked. I have to stop this because I'm hungry. I don't want to say there's any other reason. I really am just hungry.
That's okay.
But I appreciate you doing this so much and for sharing those stories and being so honest. And I think probably explaining a situation that a lot of people say, that happened to me too. So
yeah,
it's good for them to hear you talk about it.
The thing to really point out, I think, for anybody that's maybe currently in this situation and they're not sure, is this normal? Is this how they're supposed to be? Is this how they're supposed to talk to me? Is this how long everything takes? Is this... Ask. Good Lord, don't sit there and just let it happen. Ask. Push. You know, like I know everybody says, advocate for yourself, advocate for your kids, and do what you got to do. Like, not kidding, though. Like, it's a thing because we don't know. When you're right there at the beginning and we're brand new, we don't know how it's supposed to be. Don't just accept it if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look right, if you're not sure. Like, don't just accept it. Ask the questions. It's worth it.
I hear
it's 100% worth it. Because he got on Omnipod in April, first week of April. At that point, he was 14 point something A1C in January when he got diagnosed. It was 8 at the appointment where we set up with the new doctor. He was down to 8.
Mm-hmm.
First appointment after that, 3 months after that, he was at 6.2. And then we just went to the endo last week. What week is this? Yeah, right before Thanksgiving. Thank God it was before Thanksgiving. But we went and he was at 5.7.
Wow. Good for you.
I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. Devin predicted that. Like we joke. We that's the other thing you have to do with this. You have to laugh at it. Laugh at the thing that sucks because it makes it better.
Right.
Me and Devin are jokesters like that. We kind of just like make up names for things. Like his Lancer was a stabby stab. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's just stupid stuff that we just laugh at. Like you have to laugh at it to make it not suck so much. But we joke around whenever we went. What do you think your A1C is going to be? Let's bet on it. You know, I won last time and he won this time because he's like, what's normal? And I'm like, I think it's under 5.7 is normal. He's like, it's going to be 5.7. And I was like, all right. I don't think it is. I think it went down a little bit, but I don't think it went down that much. He was dead on. And I about fell off the chair and I gave him a high five and said, yeah. And I said, holy shit. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was swearing with the doctor standing in front of me. And she's like, that's okay. I've heard the word before. But it was like, you know, it was, oh my God, how did we do this? How? But, you know.
That's awesome.
Imagine if we didn't get it till August. Imagine if I never found the podcast. Imagine what we would be doing. And I'm sorry you're hungry. I'm going to stop talking.
No, I appreciate you going over it and being passionate about it so people can hear and think I could probably do that myself for me, for my kid. You know, it's very doable. It's an amount of information you need to hear. You need to have some experience with it over and over again until it starts to make sense. You have to have good tools. And, you know, from there, an A1C is kind of where you put it, you know, once you have the knowledge, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think knowledge is key. I mean, there's a lot of people. I think I posted on the page about Omnipod. I kept hearing how people were hating it, and it just wasn't working, and it wasn't for them. And we're having such great success. I wanted to make sure everybody knew, like, it's possible. Like, don't count it out. Don't assume it's going to be a bad experience. But you have to learn it. You have to learn what it does. You have to learn what your role is as the user.
It's a very popular device, and everybody doesn't
You're gonna hear the bad a lot more than the good,
right? Yeah,
and that's what I was trying to do, was put the good out there. Like, hey, don't forget, this thing is awesome, you know. And it can be, but it takes work. You know, it's not set it and forget it. Nothing is.
Yeah, listen. You could find a group of people having a complaint about a Medtronic pump, about a Tandem pump, about the iLevel. Mm-hmm. Everyone's gonna. I mean, you just heard all the things that go into making it work right. You think everyone out there has great doctors, and they don't, and they don't realize that they're not getting good information. They just, in the end, they go, this thing doesn't work. That's, you know, what they say.
Because just like I was saying, they're changing settings, but they're not explaining to me why. If they explain to me why, then maybe I could figure out how to change them myself when the same scenario pops up, you know? But if you're not getting that information, then you don't know what to do, and you think the pump's just going to fix it for you. And it's pretty smart, but it's not that smart. You know, there's still a lot of work that has to go into it, and it can absolutely be done. And if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. You know, whatever pump it is, you know, if there's something that you work with better, then go for it. But don't think for a second that you can't get there.
I agree.
And I think that's part of what I really want parents to know is again, I'm brand new and I'm an idiot. I don't know everything. But like I told you, I was in a really, really, really awful place. And I can only speak for like this age. I don't know, what you went through with Arden being 2 years old and, or toddlers or, younger than 10 or, older. But like in this age group, I think you'll be very, very surprised what they're capable of. And maybe that's true for younger kids too. It seems to be. People are like, when do I stop being mad about this? When do I stop freaking out? When do I stop all of these awful, awful emotions? What I think is that at some point you're going to be able to see it. Maybe you can't right away, but at some point you're going to see just what they're doing and what they're capable of. And you're going to be so fucking proud of them that you're not going to have room for the rest of it. You're not going to have room for the anger and the sadness. And it's still there, but it's not going to be in the forefront. You're going to watch your kid do stuff that you never thought in a million years you would be capable of doing that day in the hospital or that day you came home and you're just sobbing together. I watched my kid does a lot of stuff. He plays baseball. He was awful, like not an awful player, but he would throw his bat. He was a terrible teammate. He had all these issues. The first semester when he started junior high, he got suspended 3 times for hitting kids for no freaking reason. He was having a lot of trouble. And he always begged me, like, can I be on the all-star team? No, show me you deserve to be. Like, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, I coach his team. So he would ask me, like, oh, I want to be on the all-star team. No, dude, like, you got to prove it. This summer, our first season, after being diagnosed, he was a leader. He showed up and he was a leader for the rest of the kids. And he did really well. He had his best season ever. He was like a completely different kid. It was mind-blowing. And I'm like, this absolutely has something to do with it. It has something to do with, like he was a jerk and got suspended because his blood sugar was high for so long and we didn't know it. And now he's turned it around. Now he's awesome. And he's like a good teammate. He's not throwing his bat. He's not getting mad at the umps anymore. He's not, like he made the all-star team because he deserved it, not because he was my kid. And the same thing, he just started wrestling this year. I've gotten calls from school that at wrestling practice, he's, stopping the younger kids from goofing around when they shouldn't be. I've got teachers calling me, telling me that they're proud of my kid instead of the other way around. Yeah. Like there's so much stuff that you don't realize is related.
Yeah. No, I know.
It's astounding. It's absolutely astounding. And every single thing that he does, I'm like, how are you doing this? Like the pride is just insane. It really is because
I'm glad for you. Yeah. And I appreciate you mentioning it too. The thyroid stuff too, like anything that can change your chemistry and your tolerance and you know what I mean? Like it changes your personality too sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to.
And I don't know how long he was obviously having trouble, the few months leading up to diagnosis for sure. But he hasn't been suspended from school since, he hasn't had any issues like that. And I wonder how long that was going on. And I'll never know. And that's fine. I've come to terms with the fact that I'll never know the reasons behind everything.
Right.
It's incredible the turnaround that can happen and how those things come to the forefront in this situation to help those awful emotions subside a little bit. No, they don't ever go away. Of course not. But I've seen a lot of posts like that lately, and I try to be helpful. But I think that's important to understand that it absolutely sucks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do.
There is some light out there in the ugly cloud of doom. We actually had an ump who was type 1. So when we had an issue with his pump falling off and the other coach started barking about, well, what's taking so long? What's the delay in game? We're going to have to, push the time back. And the ump started yelling at him. Said, I got it covered. Don't worry about
Everybody
it.
Calm down for 5 seconds. We're all going to be okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of crazy people at baseball games, that's for sure.
Well, and this coach had been a jerk for years, but it was amazing that the ump was, my son was just, what? You're type 1 too? Like this ump we've known for years, Yeah. And just now found out he was type 1 because he's like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, he's diabetic. His pump fell off. Oh, really? Is he on the Omnipod? He's like, I'm type 1 too. I'm like, oh, Jesus. And then there was a parent on the other team at that same game that walked up to me after and was like, I'm really sorry that our coach was being a jerk. And he's like, my wife is type 1 too. And I'm like, oh my God, how did we all gather at one game like this?
Also, we should stop drinking the water here apparently because something might be going on.
Like, I don't know. I just, I know it's not that common, So like having 3 type 1s at one, 13 and under baseball game seemed really odd to me.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's a community that we never wanted, but it's a great one, and I think there's a lot of support here. Our nurse set me up with one of the other kids' moms that was type 1 in our school, and we've become good friends. And she was a huge support. And I think anybody that's in that way, anybody that's sitting there just devastated and can't crawl out of it, there's stuff out there.
If you can't meet people in person, the community that I have on Facebook is a great place to meet people.
Yep.
Yeah, but it definitely helps to talk to people who understand the situation that you're in 1,000,000%. Yeah.
It was a huge benefit to talk to a couple of parents that are in our school, that know our nurse, that know our teachers, you know what I mean? Like just having something like that. And if you don't have something like that, then that really sucks. But there's somebody out there, that can help with that for sure.
Go find them. It really is valuable. All right, Tammy, you're terrific. I thank you so much. Can you hold on 1 second for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Hold on 1 second. The podcast you just enjoyed was sponsored by Tandem Diabetes Care. Learn more about Tandem's newest automated insulin delivery system, Tandem Mobi with Control IQ Plus technology at tandemdiabetes.com/juicebox. There are links in the show notes and links at juiceboxpodcast.com. I'd like to thank the Eversense 365 for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast and remind you that if you want the only sensor that gets inserted once a year and not every 14 days, you want the Eversense CGM. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. 1 year, 1 CGM. I can't thank you enough for listening. Please make sure you're subscribed or following in your audio app. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.